let's talk about the Oregon running game, because it's been fine. Jordan James has a 1,000-yard season. It's strange, on the one hand, to be talking about how an area needs to improve when you have a 1,000-yard rusher. But as I've talked about, this has not been an explosive offense running the football this season. It's been capable. It has been solid. It has not been great. And I think it's asked a lot of Dillon Gabriel compared to what was asked of Bo Nix the last couple of years. He had a more potent run game, less so in 23 than in 22, but still, they had more 200-yard rushing games each of the last 2 years than they've had so far this season, where they've only hit it 3 times. And by the way, one of those games was against Oregon State. 7.5 yards a carry. What do you know? Oregon scored 49 points and it wasn't close in the second half, which led to this question from Ben, who's a Locked On Ducks insider. You can become one as well. Get a free 14-day trial and you get priority mailbag access. You got all sorts of other perks as well. That link in the description below. He says, question for next week of the bye/work week. Good description there. What are your thoughts on the Marcus Harper, Noah Whittington connection? Meaning Jordan James is a pound it down the field back, whereas it seems Noah, most of the time, is more reliant on the O-line opening up space on the edges. Every running back at some level, Jordan James, Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, don't care who it is. Everyone has to have at least capable blocking. Where running backs separate themselves is at the second level. Because if a defensive lineman breaks through into the backfield, 9 times out of 10, that's not going anywhere. And that only happens when the offensive line blows a particular assignment. Do I notice a difference in style between Jordan James and Noah Whittington? Yes. I think on the whole this year, certainly the Illinois game feels like the outlier performance for Whittington at this point compared to James. Jordan James has been a much more attacking runner. I felt this way with Thomas Tyner and Royce Freeman. I loved Royce Freeman. He was great. What Royce was really good at was getting to the second level, and defensive backs just couldn't tackle him very easily because he didn't just have lateral movement, he had a bunch of strength, and he's a tough guy to get onto the ground. And I'm not making one-to-one comparisons here, but bear with me. I felt like Royce Freeman had a lower floor as a running back than Thomas Tyner because he didn't run as aggressively. Whittington and Freeman have the patience element to their running game. Jordan James, Thomas Tyner, this applies to CJ Verdell as well. These guys are what you'd call one-cut backs. They're going to quickly identify the hole and they're going to explode far more often than not. And they are willing to just surge forward, take 3 yards, and not try to create a big explosive play. It's one of the reasons, they're not the only one, why you don't see a lot of 40 and 50-yard runs from Jordan James compared to past Oregon running backs like Tyner or LaMichael James or DeAnthony Thomas. He's not that sort of guy. He's a between the tackles, run downhill, and if you give him a lane, he's tough to tackle at the second level. But he's going to be a one-cut sort of guy. Whittington, when he is at his best, makes a couple cuts on a play. And we've seen that in spurts this year. I do agree with the premise you're coming forward with, which is Whittington needs more from the offensive line to be at his best. He is not someone who, I think when he's running the football, is just determined to run as hard as he possibly can right into the line of scrimmage in front of him. I don't think that's his style. I don't think it necessarily needs to be his style. There are certainly times where it feels like he could benefit from that. But in a 3rd and 2, if Oregon's running the ball, there is no world where I would rather have Whittington on the field than Jordan James. Absolutely none. Because James has got a much higher floor as a running back, but Whittington, I think, has a higher ceiling if you're talking about explosive runs because he has more lateral movement. So when he gets to the second level, he can cut around a linebacker. He can juke a safety out of his shoes. Jordan James is just going to run through you, and that is great. That is phenomenally good. We have seen it be really good this year. He's clearly been the better of the two backs. I thought coming into this year might be more 1A, 1B. Nope. It is Jordan James the number 1. No Whittington's the number 2. But if Marcus Harper comes back this week, we don't know if that's going to happen at this time. He didn't play last time out against Wisconsin. I thought the interior of the offensive line definitely had their struggles. They had their moments, but overall, Marcus Harper coming back, I think would be a really good thing for this team. I think it is more important than getting Jordan Burch back, especially against a Washington team who struggles up front with the offensive line. But To go back to your question, Ben, yeah, I kind of agree. But do I think it's a Noah Whittington problem? No, I think it's more about the offensive line. So that's one aspect of the running game I want to discuss. Here's the other one. This question came from 23_3RE. Spencer, I have an idea that starting in the Big Ten championship game, Dillon Gabriel has got to run a more 2022 Bo Nix offense. Bo Nix is really good in the NFL, by the way. Shocker. I think they've wanted to run 2023 Bo offense with him, but his play style fits 2022 better because he doesn't see the field as good and is a good runner. With a postseason, it's all on the table, so he can be that true dual threat, which will help deep shots as well. Teams have to spy more consistent scrambles / design runs. So this sentiment is something I'm fully behind. And my surprise level, if this pops up starting not against Washington, but in the Big Ten championship game and going forward in all of Oregon's playoff games, I won't be surprised if you see Dillon Gabriel run more. We saw Justin Herbert get unleashed with his rushing abilities in 2019. Now, the mindset of let's not run our quarterback. Let's keep him in the pocket. Let's let him throw the football. That's not inherently wrong over the course of the season. But I saw this with Trevor Lawrence at Clemson. When they went to the national championship game and lost to LSU, Trevor Lawrence didn't run a whole heck of a lot. And then all of a sudden, in the Fiesta Bowl against Ohio State, when it's a lot harder to run, yeah, sometimes quarterback carries can be the numbers advantage in the box that you need to have success running the football. And those are just two examples. There have been others. But Oregon in 2019 not running Justin Herbert, well, let's see, why would they do that? Oh, that's right, because he got hurt a couple years prior running the football at the goal line. So they said, we kind of like him to throw the football because once the backup gets in there, yeah, it's a significant drop-off. And I think Dante Moore can be good next year. I don't want to see him play again for Oregon this season unless it's, in garbage time against the Huskies this week, which is not a guarantee to get to. But that's the only scenario in which I'd like to see Dante Moore play a football game for Oregon in 2024. Otherwise, I'd like Dillon Gabriel to be on the field. But you're right that when the chips are down and it matters most and it's all on the line and you've got a chance, you do whatever it takes. If you're not having a lot of success running inside, you run your quarterback. If you feel like you need the extra blocker in there, you need the numbers, or he's got to pull it, you absolutely do it. Think of the Ohio State game. Oregon ran the ball fine. They ran it fine. Not great. Jordan James had a 100-yard game, but just over, but they ran it fine. They were able to do well enough. That game was won with Dillon Gabriel's left arm. Let me ask you as an Oregon fan, how much trust do you have in Dillon Gabriel throwing the football right now? I've still got plenty. I have faith he can get back to what he was in the middle part of the season when at one point he'd worked himself up to be the Heisman Trophy favorite, but he's worked himself out of that without Oregon losing a game because his numbers and his play have faltered a little bit. But in that Ohio State game, big 3rd and 2, Oregon's trying to retake the lead. Oh, that's right, Dillon Gabriel ran the ball. Now, it was an RPO. He could have handed it off, could have thrown it in the flat, but they didn't guard him. They didn't guard him as open on the perimeter. So I don't think that's going to suddenly become an identity of Oregon's offense like Texas A&M with Marcel Reed or Haynes King at Georgia Tech or Lamar Jackson at Louisville back in the day and now with the Ravens. I don't expect anything like that. But could you see more than one design run per game for Dillon Gabriel? If it comes to that, yeah. Preferably, that's not the path you have to go down. And the offensive line can just clear the way for your running backs. You keep your quarterback from taking some hits. But if you got the Big Ten championship game on the line and you feel like the best play call is, yeah, we're gonna go quarterback sweep here. Or we're going to give Dillon Gabriel the option to pull it out in this particular look, then yeah, they'll absolutely do it. I would love to see this run game tick up another level so that the play action is more of a threat and not as much is placed on the shoulders of Dillon Gabriel. I don't think that'll start this week against Washington. I think it could start in the Big Ten championship game, certainly in the playoff game. Wherever Oregon's first playoff game is, certainly that's when you could start to see it if it becomes necessary.